So in this iteration, we continue working with the app. After building an app that displays a single view, we're now going to try to display a single view but made out of a list. So in our iteration plan, now we finished one and we finished two. You probably noticed that you feel more confident. You have done something. You ran the app. You can see it on your phone. It doesn't do much, but it is an app and it is functioning and it is working. One of the great benefits of the iterative plan is it builds the developer's confidence towards the complex project that they are in. And sometimes you start the project and there are some pieces of it that you don't know or you are not sure how to attack it, but there are some other pieces that you're confident with. So the iteration plan separates the two and help you like knock down some of the things that you're able to do and isolate the challenging components that you can attack at a future iteration. So now let's get to this iteration 3 that has a couple of items that we will discuss related to displaying a code from a list, and not just from a list. How are we going to display it from the list? And here I'm proposing that we display it randomly. So again, and I want to also mention the benefit of the app development processes. You may panic once I say list and random and say, oh, I have no idea how to do that. And what the beautiful thing about the app development process is it takes you step by step and into addressing something you do not know. So yes, I understand that you don't know how to do that, and the trust to the process and follow it. Be disciplined in following it and answering the questions that it asks you, and you will see that you gradually will be able to address and understand what's happening. It may take you more than one time going through the process in order to finally reach the conclusion, but the process will take you there. Trust to the process. So step one, problem formulation. What is the scope? The scope is to display a code from a list of codes. So I have 5 codes that like in the previous iteration we had 1 code. Now I have 5, and I want to display just one of them. I don't want to display all the 5 at the same time. I want to display one, and I want to display that one at random. So that is the scope of the project. What are the 5 codes? I should have written them here, but I know each one of you may use different 5 codes. So when we get to building the app, I'll just put the codes I have, and you can use whatever codes that you want. Testing. What is them? Don't forget the testing. So what is the testing scenario that you have? Testing scenario here has 2 steps. Because I'm displaying codes from a list, I want to open the app more than one time. So it's the same step that we did in the previous iteration. Open the app and observe that there's a code displayed. But in this case, since I have more than one code and I want the app to display more than one code, I want you to observe that there is multiple codes in there, which so we open the app more than one time. You will see, because I have done this before, you will see later on when we talk about random that it may not show you different ones, but we will get to that later. So the solution formulation. And the solution formulation again follows the 3 steps: the model, the view, the controller. In the model, we talk about the data and what data we want and how to represent it. So in this case, in the previous iteration, we had a single code. Here we have a list of codes, so we have to put it somewhere. You can decide to write them inside your instructions, inside your controller, but observe here that I said we're going to create a file. We will talk later on about something called hard coding, which is taking a specific data and entering them into the controller, and that is a bad programming practice. You want always the data that are specific to put them away from the instructions and let the instruction load them as needed, because those change. So we're going to use something called the property list file and enter the codes in them, and then load the file into the NS array data type. So we're going to use to display the list of codes an NS array data type, and we will load it in there. So we have data that exists outside the app in the hard drive as a file, and then when the app opens, we want to load that into the app universe in the memory, and when it goes to memory, that's when it will become part of the NS array data type. The view is not going to change. I already created the view in the previous iteration that displays one quote, a single quote. I have the label and everything. I don't need to make any change here. The only difference in this iteration is where is the quote come from. In the previous iteration, I entered it in the label. Here, I have to get it from the file, and you will see. So you probably notice that the controller, there's a lot of work in the controller in this iteration. In the previous iteration, we didn't do anything in the controller. Now that I want some specific actions, specific instructions to happen, I have to provide my own instructions, or what we call, and you'll see, code or program. So in the controller, I have a label on the view. I need to connect that label to the controller file or to the controller class, so that the controller class can modify the data of the label. Then I need to load the file and the codes from the file and put them in the NS array. When should I do that? Because remember, the controller is organized by events. So every event triggers a specific function. So what event should trigger the controller to load the file? In general, whenever the app needs to load something, you want to do that in the beginning. The beginning is triggered, or the beginning is the event of view when the view opens or when the view loads, and that triggers the function view did load. And you will notice in the single view application template that Xcode provides, it already provides you with the view did load function, because it expects you that most likely in all your apps you will have to provide custom instructions in the view did load. So in the view did load, we will need to connect to the file, open the file, loads the content from the file, and put it in the NS array, and you will see what kind of instruction we need to provide. When we provide instructions in the class, we use a programming language. We're talking now to the processor and to the memory. We're not talking to the processor or the memory, we're talking to the operating system. So it's called the high level. High level meaning that I'm not really talking to the device, I'm talking to a layer of software on top of the device. So that's called the high level language. So the language we are using is Swift 2.0, and or the Swift language. I shouldn't put a version. They change a lot, so it's Swift language. There is another language called Objective-C. That's the language that has been around for quite some time. And there's a playlist next to that with Objective-C if you want to learn a little bit about Objective-C. So we will use instructions there. And then we want to create a custom function that generates a random code and assigns it to the text property of the label. And because we learned from the previous iteration, to let the label displays the code, we assign the sentence of the code or the string to its text property. We did that in the interface builder of Xcode in iteration 1. Now we're going to provide a code, an instruction of code to do the same thing. Random code is interesting because what you have in the list is like a table like that. So the array has a list. This is your first code, the second, the third, and the fourth. And then each one of them is indexed. The NS array holds the data and automatically index them 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on until they're how many, depending on how many they are. The key to observe here is that the index starts from 0, which means the last item is the same, is 1 minus how many they are. So if they are 4, then the last item will have an index of 3. It's not gonna matter with us much, but the NS array what I want you to know, the NX array is a one-dimensional list that has the data or that you want to put in the list, and automatically behind the scene indexes them with an index that started from 0 to 1. So if I want to get a random item from this code, I don't really know how to randomize string, but I know how to generate a random number. There are functions in the iOS platform that generates a random number for me. If I say I want a random number between 0 and 3, that function can generate that number for me. Or if I say I want a random number between 0 and whatever it is, or 1, whatever it is, it generates that number for me. So if I know the beginning of the index and I know the last one, which is how many they are, I can pass those to the iOS platform function and say, I have this range of numbers. Can you please give me a random number within that range? And it gives me the number. Then I can go to the array, the NS array, and say, give me the code that is stored at this particular index. So I'm really not randomizing the codes, I'm randomizing the index of the code and then retrieving a code. And since the index is random, the code will be picked up at random. Uh, for accuracy purposes, software does not really generate a true random, and you will observe that. It's what they call pseudo-random, and you'll see that if you dig a little bit deeper, there are so many functions to generate a random number, and they come with different levels of accuracy of how random really it is. And if you have a small set of data versus a large set, a small range of numbers versus a large range of numbers, the randomness can also vary and change. So we're gonna create that, and notice that I created a custom function. Why did I do that? I don't really have to do that. It is a good practice for each unit of code to have distinct responsibility. So I wanted to get you used to that practice from now. It might be a little bit overwhelming in the beginning, but hopefully we're taking you step by step, so it will be okay. And then we're gonna call that function from view did load. So that's what we need to do in the controller. Remember, the controller is the class, the view controller class that is attached to the view. The third step is the solution implementation, and these are the planning. So this is the project management piece of the project or of the app development. What exactly are we going to do? And if we are a team, then who will do it and when they will do it and how are we going to schedule them and so on and so forth. We are in a beginning project, so we only have 5-6 steps. If this was a real life application, you probably have many more steps than that, and scheduling becomes important and critical and so on and so forth. So we will want to create the property list file, add the codes to it, connect the label to the controller, and then most of our work will be in the controller. And in this iteration, we're really going to open up to the Swift programming language, learn how to create places in memory, we call them variables, and how to create a function, what are the specific instructions. Like we speak in a language, and every language has its own grammars, its own rules. Also programming languages have their own rules, and we will learn about them step by step. So that concludes iteration number 3.